I did with this video, I want to go over how I grade essays, make sure you understand how the marking is working and what the grading sheet's indicating with your particular essay. I can't do this for every single essay, but just want to show you how I do things. To grade, I use the tracking function in Word, and I just go through the essay, as you've kind of noticed with the drafts and everything, and start marking things. I like to use highlighting quite a bit. Sometimes I'll tell you what the highlighting is. Sometimes I'll kind of assume you can look at it and see, particularly with wrong words or the use of it or you or something like that. If you're not supposed to use the word it in the essay, except maybe in quotes, then, if I highlight it, that's me saying, hey, get that out of there, right? But sometimes I'll offer commentary. In fact, generally I try to. Sometimes I don't want students spending 30 minutes looking at a highlighted thing going like, what's that? So generally I'll put some kind of commentary there. Just needs to make that lowercase, not capitalized. Then I just start going through the essay and start noting problems within the essay. Here we got a comma splice, two sentences jammed together with a comma instead of a period. So I'm going to note that. So the problem there is that comma should be a period. You're going to start seeing some of the commentary appear on the right side of the page. Nothing should be underlined in an MLA paper. It should be italicized. And I might make a commentary there. Let me shrink this a little bit. But you can start seeing some of the commentary coming up over here. You also see over here this little line that indicates I've made a comment somewhere within that section. Sometimes if I add a comma or delete a comma, you may not see it right away, but make sure you're looking for those lines to see where a problem might be. But again, like for something like an it, you know you're not supposed to have it in there, but you did anyway. Very frustrating for students, like, I thought I checked that. But again, this just takes practice and trying to figure out what all's happening here. But you kind of see, I'll just go through the essay, make my commentary. And generally at the end of the essay, you're going to see a grading sheet. And you might have to scroll down quite a bit on past the works cited page. Make that bigger. And you're going to see this grading sheet. And this is going to be the commentary on the essay and the grading for the essay. And there's a couple of philosophical underpinnings going on here. I want to talk about those just briefly. One, I like to separate the essay into organization and development and into the grammar, sentence structure in English. Sometimes you get an essay that gives you the meaning of life in a beautiful way, but there's problems with the grammar. They might have the comma splices or agreement errors or some kind of recurring grammar problem, and you kind of want to separate that out. Say, hey, you got really great ideas, but you need to watch some of these nagging little English errors that are bringing your grade down a little bit. Likewise, sometimes you get a beautifully written essay that's perfect English, but they don't really say anything or they don't develop their paragraphs. And you want to kind of note, like, hey, your English is working really well, but you really need to work on incorporating quotes or work on your conclusion or things like that. So I like to separate that out a little bit, make sure students can kind of identify where the problems are. And what you're going to notice, if I start highlighting things, that's me kind of saying, hey, be sure you understand what I'm complaining about there and be sure and work on those. For English errors, you can go to the content page on the course, and down here under Help Resources and Sample Essays, you'll see this online review of common editing concerns. And it just goes over some of the things I might put in your paper. It's not meant to be a grammar book or anything. But it's just like, well, what's a comma splice? Some of you haven't been in school for a while or just may have never heard the term. So it just kind of goes over, that's when you're putting two sentences together with a comma instead of a period. So if you go back to that essay, that may sound kind of like, wow, what's all these comma splices? Just means they need a period there instead of a comma. But it's a kind of recurring, fairly significant sentence structure error that this particular student needs to address. And that's why it's highlighted there. Complain about the conclusion a little bit, things like that. But you're going to see you get a basic writing grade. I'd look at all these components, deal with all these questions, make my commentary where I kind of summarize what I'm seeing in the essay. And inside the basic writing grade and the letter grade, there's different ways you can grade an essay. I've seen some English teachers, they take a point off for each wrong word and 5 points off for each comma splice and 10 points if this doesn't happen or 3 points with an agreement error. I don't like to do that. It gets nitpicky, and if a student just has a recurring problem, a pattern of error within the essay, it unfairly punishes that because everything else might be working well, but they just don't quite understand, what a fragment is or something, and they get an F on the essay because the instructor's taking 5 points each time. So I do it a little bit more holistically, and basically I just assign a letter grade and convert that to a number grade. Eventually we need to get a number here. And that's the basic writing grade. The problem with the way I do it is that it's very difficult to get like 100 on an essay. There's no such thing. There's no perfect essay out there. The idea of this class is for you to keep working on your writing, and we're writing very quickly. You can kind of feel it's like I don't know if that's the perfect essay I wanted to submit, but I got to turn it in and get to the next one, right? In fact, that's how most of the writing is at least in my life. You got to finally just decide I got to turn this in, and hopefully it's good quality. But that's the basic writing grade. The documentation grade, 30 points. As we get to these last 3 grades, these are generally yes or no questions. Are you doing it correctly or are you not? And where's the problem? With this essay, I'm saying, got the documentation going, working really, really well there. You're crediting all your sources. The works cited space looks good. There's no unintentional plagiarism, anything like that. So the documentation's looking good. We did see one "it" in the essay, so lost a point there. It's very critical when students are like, how can I improve my essay grades? If you lose some points down here, this is where you need to focus. Read through your essay aloud, do a search for the word "it." If you've never searched for it before, you just go up to find, and you can just do space IT space, and it'll highlight the "its" for you. One's in a quote there, so that doesn't count. But if you just do that search and get rid of that "it," you've saved yourself a point there, right? And get back. Here we go. But you get the editing and peer review grades. Generally, peer reviews are being counted as a separate grade, so I'm not doing that with this essay. Also, the required punctuation grade. Make sure you have all those required punctuation. Make sure you understand what's going on there. There's a help sheet up there and D2L as well. But you can kind of see, even though the student kind of earned a B with the basic writing grade, which is a good grade, right? Particularly on a first essay. Doing well with these bottom grades brings that grade up quite a bit, up to an 89% instead of an 85% as was with the basic writing grade. But down here, that's the final grade for the essay, and that's about it. Grading's never fun. It's not a good self-esteem exercise, particularly on the internet, to receive a graded essay. But keep in mind the idea is that we're trying to help you become a better writer. That's the whole point of this class. But again, online it can feel, man, that's being hard on the essays. It's like, well, that's kind of what we're here for. So if I don't point out the errors, you can't work on them. You can't get better at the process. But keep in mind the idea is to help you, not make you feel bad. But like I said, sometimes getting feedback on the internet is a bit of a shock. But if you have questions, very important. If you think I've made a mistake in grading an essay, let me know. Let me go back to that real quick. If you see something like, I'm still on tracking, but something like that. That means I didn't see the dashes in your essay, and I can't do a search for it. You can't use the find function to find the dash. I can for like brackets or semicolons, but not dashes or ellipses usually. So the little question mark there is me kind of saying, well, if it's in there, let me know and get those points back, right? Make sure you check my math. But if you have questions about the graded essay, be sure to let me know. But definitely, as you're thinking about, what should I be paying attention to here, anything that's highlighted is me kind of saying, hey, watch out for this. You're losing some points here. And you're going to keep losing points unless you work on this particular problem. Also, make sure you forgive yourself a little bit. A wording error here or there, misspelled word here or there. We're writing quickly. You're going to have a couple of those probably. Most people do. Kind of forgive yourself and move on with life. It's kind of one of those like, oh, I know that. But if you have questions again, be sure to let me know. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.